Florida was by far the toughest team for me to predict in the SEC this year. The Gators exceeded expectations last year, essentially saving Billy Napier's job by going 8-5 with the toughest schedule in the country, where they face 11 Power 4 opponents. And now they come into this season loaded with talent from last year's squad, very high expectations, but once again, another brutal schedule, especially their road games. So the million-dollar question is, what should we expect from Florida? Will this be a breakthrough year for the Gators? Will it be about the same as last year? We're about to find out. You take a look at what happened last year. 8-5 for Florida. They started 3-3. Rough start. Got annihilated by Miami. Got annihilated by Texas A&M. Both those at home. 3-3 start, but then started to figure it out. 4-3 down the stretch. Pulled off massive upset wins at home over LSU and Ole Miss, essentially ending Ole Miss's bid for a college football playoff berth. And then they destroyed Tulane in their bowl game. The major storyline heading into this year, and for a good amount of last year, was their quarterback, DJ Lagway. He is the guy who everybody is excited to see if he can stay healthy. That maybe is the biggest key for Florida this year, is can Lagway stay healthy? Because when he was healthy, he went 6-1 as a starter. And that one loss actually came to Georgia, where he got injured in the game. So we didn't get to play the entire game. So maybe an asterisk by that one loss. Regardless, 6-1 as a starter, threw for over 1,900 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and does have some dual threat capability as well. Very explosive player, very electric player, and obviously the success of Florida's season is going to come down to him and whether or not he can play a full 12 games. He has a great supporting cast surrounding him offensively, right? Jaden Baugh back at running back, over 673 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. Their wide receiver, Eugene Wilson, returns from an injury. They add J. Michael Sturdivant in from UCLA, and they have 4 starters back on the offensive line. Offensive line that was actually very good last year, only allowed 20 sacks on the year. Just, again, need to do a little bit better job protecting DJ Lagway. But I think, we always say you see the biggest jump from a quarterback from year 1 to year 2. Sometimes we say that with coaches as well. Year 1 to year 2, you see a massive jump. We're hoping we see the same from DJ Lagway, who, again, needs to stay healthy, needs to cut down on the interceptions. Take a look at the defense. They are loaded. I really like this Florida defense. 7 starters back. Only gave up 23.1 points per game last year, gave up 377 yards per game. Yes, they lose their top 3 tacklers, but they're going to be just fine. That defensive line is going to be nasty. They are anchored by Tyreek Sapp, 7 sacks on the year. George Gums, 5 sacks on the year. And Caleb Banks, who had 4.5 sacks on the year. That defensive line, really, really good. Florida had 39 sacks as a team in 2024. 28 of them return this year. 28 of the 39 sacks they had come back this year. The linebacking core is very young but very talented. Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, and the secondary looking to be very good as well. Jordan Castell is back. He was 4th on the team in tackles last year, and Bryce Thornton led the team with 3 interceptions. Factor in Devin Moore, who should return from injury, and this Florida team looking to be pretty solid at all 3 levels defensively, and they've got a young, electric quarterback to go along with it. The problem for Florida, like it was last year, is their schedule. Arguably a little bit easier than last year. Last year they played 11 Power 4 opponents. This year they're playing what, 10? Long Island and USF are not Power 4 opponents, but still a brutal, brutal schedule. It's just a matter of can the talent continue to get better and can they find a way to win those big games? Because again, they went 7-5 in the regular season, but they needed those 2 big upset wins over LSU and Ole Miss just to get to that point. Look at the schedule. They're going to start 2-0. They'll beat Long Island. They'll beat USF. So great start and a great opportunity for Lagway to get his feet wet again, to see what this offense is made of, to see just kind of everybody to work out the kinks as they head into the bigger stretch of the season. Because once they start LSU in week 3, it is all gas, no brakes, tough game after tough game after tough game. At LSU, they beat the Tigers 27-16 last year in Gainesville. And it was an interesting game because both teams were coming off really bad performances. LSU was coming off the beating they suffered against Alabama. Florida was suffering the beating against Texas. Granted, the Gators were very beat up in that game themselves. A lot of starters were out for that game, both offensively and defensively. But now this year in Death Valley, assuming both teams are healthy at this point in the year, I got to go with LSU. A very difficult place to play. An LSU team that is loaded from top to bottom on both sides of the ball. Garrett Nussmeier is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He's got a great supporting cast surrounding him. And this LSU defense I really like. I don't think people are talking nearly enough about what the Tigers have on that side of the ball. 8 starters back on defense. Elite at all 3 levels. Defensive line, linebacking core, secondary. This is going to be an offense for LSU that really tests this Florida secondary that we just praised. It's going to be an LSU defensive line that really tests this Florida offensive line that we just praised. It's going to be a very hard-nosed, hard-fought battle, and I think Florida holds their own. I just don't think they have enough to beat the Tigers, especially on the road. They are 2-1. They go on the road to Miami in a bit of a revenge game. Both these teams are going to look drastically different than they did back in Week 1. Florida hadn't. They didn't start DJ Lagway last year. Season opener, Miami walked into the Swamp, won 41-17. They outgained Florida by 268 yards, but they were starting Graham Mertz. Miami had Cam Ward and elite wide receivers and elite running backs, and they're all gone. So much has changed for both programs heading into the Week 4 matchup in Miami. I look at Miami this year, and they've got talent. Carson Beck is in, coming off that injury, but should be healthy, obviously, by the season opener, and should kind of start hitting his stride by the time he reaches Week 4. Got some solid talent surrounding him. Miami, really, really good in the trenches. I love their offensive line, and I really love their defensive line. Really like what Mario Cristobal has put together up front with a experienced, strong-armed quarterback who, yes, needs to work on his decision-making, but still very experienced, doing very well at Georgia for his 2 years there, and a very solid secondary as well to go along with Miami. I got to go with the Hurricanes in this game. I know a lot of Florida fans are going to hate that. They're going to strongly disagree with that. But I look at this game, I think in terms of quarterback play, it's close. I think you could argue that Carson Beck owns the slight edge over DJ Lagway, but it is close. But I like Miami's edge on the offensive line and the defensive line. They've got the home field advantage. I think they get the win, although it's significantly closer than we saw last year. So with that, Florida is 2-2. And all this talk about the Gators having this breakthrough season are starting to kind of get crushed a little bit. People are starting to doubt them, of course. They come out of their bye week, and their reward is a home game against Texas. Talk about tough, man. I mean, again, it is a tough schedule. I mean, you look at after a 2-0 start, 3 of their next, 4 games are on the road, all against tough teams, and the home game is Texas, who was a couple plays away from playing for a national title and is obviously a national title favorite this year. So coming out of the bye, they play Texas, who's also coming off a bye week. The first meeting between Texas and Florida in Gainesville since 1940. How about that? History being made with this conference expansion. This, though, is a trap game for Texas. A trap game for Texas. Texas's offensive line has major concerns. You've got a quarterback in Arch Manning who's receiving a lot of hype, even though we really haven't seen a whole lot of him on the field. Yeah, had some decent moments last year against some bad opponents. How's he going to fare as a full-time starter with a fairly new wide receiver core? A couple starters back, but still some new pieces there. And how's he going to fare if he's running for his life, if the offensive line can't hold up, especially hold up against this Florida defensive line? I'm picking Florida to win this game. And I know that's going to blow people's mind. How can we lose to Miami, but we got us beating Texas? The question marks and all that stuff. Here's the thing. Florida's got enough talent where they're not going to lose all their big games. They're just not. They're not going to lose all their big games. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're beating at least one, if not both, of Texas and Georgia. They're going to do it. They're going to win at least one of them between Texas and Georgia. And I lean more towards the Texas game because of the questions on Texas' offensive line, because Florida has true home field advantage, not being played in Jacksonville, is going to be played in Gainesville. Arch Manning, yes, will have already played at Ohio State, so he's already experienced a tough environment, but Florida, very tough environment of their own. The Swamp going to be rocking for this game, even if they are 2-2. I like them against the Longhorns, and they can pull off a massive upset, just like they did last year against Ole Miss, just like they did last year against LSU. They're going to pull off a win or two at home. I mean, they shouldn't. Texas will be the one. 3-2 for the Gators. That's massive, massive, massive. Riding that high, they go on the road to Texas A&M. Can they win in College Station? I say no. Again, I know. How are you going to have us beating Texas but losing to A&M? Look, A&M's a good team. They walked into Gainesville last year, won 33-20, outgained the Gators by 187 yards. Yes, again, that was an early season game, so Florida hadn't figured things out yet, but the Aggies are going to be salty this year. Mike Elko has put together a good squad, a veteran quarterback, a deep running back core, a solid wide receiver core, great in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and a very, very, very good defense, which is fitting considering he's a defensive-minded coach. Factor in Florida does not typically play well at Texas A&M. They've lost 3 of the last 4 at Texas A&M. I just don't like their odds in this game. Maybe riding that high over Texas, a classic letdown spot here. Look back at last year. Part of the issue for Florida, it was their offense, sure, but their defense was what really was the deal breaker against A&M. The Gators allowed nearly 150 rushing yards per game on the season. A&M gashed them for 310. Factor in how good the A&M running back core is this year. I don't think they rushed for 300, but I think they can run well enough to set up the pass. Florida's defense going to struggle a little bit. They lose this game. They're 3-3, but they will cruise past Mississippi State. They're 4-3 heading into their second bye week in the final 5 games of the year. They need 2 more to go bowling, but that's obviously not the goal this year. They want more than that. To come out of the bye, they play Georgia in Jacksonville. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Florida would have won last year had DJ Lagway not gotten hurt. Maybe so. The Gators were winning that game at halftime. They were playing well. DJ Lagway gets hurt. They're up 13-6, and then it all falls apart. They ultimately lose 34-20. The Gators were down to their 3rd string quarterback the rest of the way. Really couldn't move the ball, and the defense was only going to be able to hold on for so long. So Florida, despite everything, really held their own against the Bulldogs. They've now lost 4 straight, though, to the Bulldogs. They've lost 7 of the last 8, and I just can't pick them to pull off this win now. Again, if you don't like my Texas pick, fine. Have them lose that and have them beating Georgia. I really think they're going to win one of them, but I like their odds more against the Longhorns than I do like the Georgia, who looks complete at every level. Yes, Gunnar Stockton's in at quarterback. Yes, there's some questions there. Yes, they lose a lot of talent, but we've seen that every year, and Kirby Smart always has an elite squad. I think this defense gives DJ Lagway some trouble, assuming he's fully healthy. I'm not sure Florida's going to be able to put up over 20 points. They've been held to 20 or less in the last couple meetings, I believe. I just don't think they're going to be able to eclipse that. Georgia's defense is the difference maker. Florida loses. They're 4-4. They'll cruise past Kentucky, who they beat by 28 points last year. They get Kentucky and Mississippi State in SEC play, 2 of the worst teams in the conference. So that's huge. They're going to win that. They're 5-4. Then they go on the road to Ole Miss. That's a winnable game. They go on the road to Ole Miss, who they beat by 7 last year. The Rebels were ranked 9th in the country. They lost that game. It pretty much ruined their playoff hopes. It was huge for the Gators. They've won the last 3 over the Rebels. They've done pretty well against them. And last year, they held them to a season low. The defense held the Rebels to a season low, 17 points. But this is senior day for Ole Miss, senior day in Oxford. Austin Simmons is looking to be another great quarterback under Lane Kiffin. Yes, they lost Jackson Dart, some good wide receivers, but they reloaded once again through the transfer portal. I think this is a toss-up game for me that I truly could see going either way. I lean more towards Ole Miss, though. I think they can put some points on this Gators defense, factor in the home field advantage, and I like Ole Miss just a tiny bit more. 5-5 for Florida, but rest assured they'll win their last 2. They will beat Tennessee, who they should have beat last year. They lost 23-17 in overtime. This year's Tennessee squad not going to be as good as the one last year. This Florida squad, I think, a little bit better talent-wise, experience-wise than they were last year. So if you could have won in Knoxville last year, you're definitely going to win in Gainesville now. Very late meeting, I should add. I think the latest these 2 teams have met since 2001, November 22nd. They will beat Tennessee, though, whose offense I think will sputter at times this year. And then they will beat Florida State. They beat the Seminoles by 20 points last year. And while Florida State will improve from last year's horrendous 2-10 season, not enough to come on the road and get this win, and not enough to get back to the competing on the national level that they expect to. With all that being said, we have Florida at 7-5 in the regular season for the 2nd year in a row. And I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. You're going to disagree with that. And I know some of the logic for some of these games might be interesting. Having beating Texas but losing to Georgia, or having beating Texas and losing to Ole Miss. Some disagree with the Miami loss. I think the ceiling for Florida this year is 9-3. So maybe you have them beating Miami, maybe you have them beating Ole Miss. I think those are the most likely wins that I have pegged as losses. So if you have them winning both those, great, they're 9-3. But I think the 7-5 to 9-3 range is going to be very fitting for the Gators. I think next year could be a bigger step forward. Napier's done a very good job on the recruiting trail. DJ Lagway is only going to get better as time goes on. But I just don't think with the schedule that they are facing this year that they have enough to be that 9, 10, 11 win team that a lot of people are calling for. This is not a playoff team this year. It's just not. I hope they prove me wrong. I think college football is better when Florida is good. So again, subtract the Miami loss, subtract the Ole Miss loss, 9-3, split those. You're 8-4. Again, I think 7-5 to 9-3 is the appropriate range for Florida this year. Maybe we're on the lower end, but I'm just not quite ready to get them to that higher end just yet. They pull off a big upset over Texas. They get another win over Tennessee and Florida State, some bitter rivals there. 7-5 for the Gators, a shot at another 8-win season, and maybe the breakthrough year really coming in 2026. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, which are some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. The link for that in the description below, along with our weekly newsletters filled with tons of exclusive content that you do not want to miss. Go check it out, become a member of our GE Nation, and once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.